My name is Mike Seiler. I'm the Public Assistance Director for Mississippi Emergency Management Agency. We are here because of the declared disaster that happened on March 24th and 25th. That disaster number is 4697. We'll start using that as a reference for this disaster, this event. Go ahead and have everybody with MEMA PA just stand up, wave your hand so everybody gets to see you. Of course, the handsome gentleman operating the computer is MEMA, and one lady and Rick Christian in the back. If y'all have any questions post this, get with them. Let's talk about it with in a group and discuss it, because if I give a lot of information, there's a lot of, in PA, it's a lot of gray area, and if I say one thing, somebody may come back later and say, that's, we did the same thing they told, but they may be in a different situation. They may be a different group with different circumstances. So I want to be sure I give you the right answer. Also, I want these gentlemen and ladies that you speak with to be able to circle back with you. If you talk with them, they ask you a question, they don't have a quick answer for you, or they want to get some clarification on something, I want them to close a circle with you. So the only way I can make sure that those circles are closed is to reach people to get on one-on-one. Initially, we had planned to have a member of the FEMA's procurement team here. That is not going to happen today. Unfortunately, they aren't able to make it. That was last-minute deal that I found out about. We apologize. We will let you know. If there is any kind of concerns you have with procurement, email us. Let us know what they are. We'll either have somebody drive back up here as a team, present it with you, or we will set up a phone call and we can talk about it. I do apologize for that. And if you were told that that was going to be an option presented in this meeting, but circumstances being what they are, they were not able to attend today. So we will definitely be able to share any kind of information as well as set something up if you need to. So we are talking about 4697. That is the disaster that happened March 24th and into the mornings of March 25th. The RPA deadline, this is one of the biggest things I want you to get out of it. I'm going to say it several times today, is April the 25th. We have brought the hard copies for you to sign. That way I've got something in hand. If we don't get it done electronically by that day, that we have something in hand when I have to go all the way to Atlanta to argue about it. We have to get approval and from FEMA to get you added after that 30 days. Let's don't even fool with it. Please get it in. It happens. I've dealt with it on every disaster that somebody didn't get in that 30 days. I've had them be denied from the disaster because they didn't do it. So please get it in. It takes 2 minutes of your time. If it takes any longer than that, you did something wrong. It doesn't take long. And if you have problems doing it, call us. We'll walk you through it. April 25th. Let's think April 15th. Let's get it done way before then, like today. Brian. So contact guidance. If you have any questions, you can contact your assigned program delivery manager and your assigned state contact. You'll be getting that. Right now I can give you one, and that's going to be myself. Miss Sonia Grammer back there will be the point person in this county. She will get help, and Miss Dorothy Braley will be here to help her as long as others when we see the need. So that one point of contact is going to be me, and I will funnel that information straight to her. I don't mind getting an email that I have to forward. All the emails I get, I don't mind those at all. I can put that on somebody else. So if nothing else, you can send it to me, but Miss Grammer's back there with a fistful of cards, and she can give you that contact information. So severe storms and straight line winds on 24th and 25th declared counties: Carroll, Humphreys, Monroe, Montgomery, Panola, and Sharkey. Initially there was 4. I just want to say this. If we ever have a disaster, we run out there and try to get the information collected as quickly as we can to get the ball rolling. To get that disaster declared, we can add counties to it. So if in the future, if Monroe County is not added into a disaster, don't panic. You just keep getting us the information. We'll add you to it. We just have to get the ball rolling to get it all the way up to Washington and come back down for that declaration. Brian. Overview, public assistance definition, applicant, facility, work, and cost. Brian. Public assistance defines supplemental financial assistance to state and local governments and certain private, non-profit organizations for response and recovery activities required as a result of a federally declared disaster. Funding is a cost share at federal share of no less than 75%. No less. It could increase, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more depth, but it could increase, but at no less than 75%. Okay. The Public Assistance Program assists in the restoration of a community infrastructure as a result of a federally declared event. It is a supplemental cost reimbursement program. I really want that to be driven home. This is reimbursement. I am audited every day of the year. I've got some federal agency or state agency auditing me every day of the year. So I have got to make sure that my payments are proper. And I am a steward of the federal funds, and I'm a steward of the state funds. So if I get fined, that's a state fund. It's coming out of my pocket, your pocket, everybody's pocket, right? So I've got to make sure we're protecting money the best way we can. So this is a reimbursement. I will work with you in those gray areas the best that I can without getting in trouble. If I get my hand slapped, and I'm okay with that. If they, call me ugly names, I'm good with that as long as we're not getting fined. So we will work as closely with you to get you funding the best way that I can. Public assistance is not assistance for local populations for damages to private homes, commercial properties, or local businesses. I think we're all here from a private industry, right? I mean, a governmental entity, right? Or a private nonprofit. So if you're here for a private home, if you're here for commercial property or local business, I'm sorry, this is not the venue for you. Nobody moved, so good. FEMA and SBA was raising their hand.
That's me.
So we'll get into SBA when the P&P section comes up, but SBA is here. FEMA manages the program, provides technical assistance, and approves the grant. What we're responsible for is educating the applicant, working with FEMA to manage a program, implementing and monitoring the grant's award, and as the applicant, identifies damages, provides documentation, manages fund. Now, on this, I want to get into this. We do not identify your damage. That would be an injustice to you. We're not going to be able to capture everything that you see and you know to be damaged because of this event. You only know your property. You only know your facility. You only know what it's going to be. And we can assist you in documentation. We can assist you in getting that information delivered. But it's going to require you guys to show us and tell us what it is. We will help in any way we can, but we can't identify it, because we identify something wrong, then it's our fault, right? Or if we don't miss something, it's our fault, right? We don't want to do that injustice to you. We'll let you tell us what it is. So in the eligibility pyramid, first you have to be an eligible applicant. It's got to be an eligible facility. The work has to be eligible, and the cost has to be eligible. Eligible applicants, state. I've got several state people that I know are here right now. Declared counties. If you're in Monroe County, you're in the declared county. You have to be a city, a town, a village within the declared county, and you have to be our other political subdivisions of the state. A Native American tribal government and tribal organizations, and certain private nonprofit organizations. We'll go into there's a special or a subsection in here about private nonprofits, and we will get into it right now. To be eligible P&P applicant, the P&P must show that it has a current ruling letter from the IRS granting tax exemption under 501c, D, or E, or Internal Revenue Code of 1954, or documentation from the Mississippi State Secretary of State substantiating it is a non-revenue producing, non-profit entity doing business under the state law. Can't talk today. Two categories of private nonprofits. Critical services. So examples of those critical services are going to be some fire departments, your emergency and rescue, your medical treatments facilities, your power, water, sewer utilities, your communication systems, your educational facilities. That's going to be the example of the critical. Now the non-critical that's also in this category would be examples such as museums, community centers, libraries, houses of worship, senior citizen centers, zoos, daycare centers, etc. Non-critical essential P&Ps must first apply to the Small Business Administration for a disaster loan for permanent repair work before applying to FEMA. You have to have gone through them first before we can start getting into what your needs are at the time. I'm going to take that opportunity to tell you, ask you, the locals here, if you know a private nonprofit. There was the example, we have houses of worship. Anybody else, if you know any of those private nonprofits, please reach out to them. Give them our information. We can give them this video that will be aired, and they can look at it and they can be put into the program. You know your community the best. I grew up in my community. I know it as well as y'all know yours. So we're going to ask you to reach out to your private nonprofits if they're not here and let them know that there is possibilities for them to be a part of this program. I don't want anybody to be missed. So I'm asking y'all right now to make sure that they're included in anything going on. To be eligible facility, that was the second step on that pyramid that you saw, is be damaged as a result of the declared event, right? We're not talking about any damages that were pre-existing. We don't want deferred maintenance. That would be, your decking and your roof was rotted. That's deferred maintenance. That was not done by the event. But it needs to be just as a direct result of the declared event located within the presidentially declared area. In this area, it's Monroe. Anything within the county limits of Monroe is going to be a part of that declaration area. Be the legal responsibility of an eligible applicant. I've probably said that word more times than I have any other word in this slide since the event. It's got to be your legal responsibility. If you can't give me a contract or a lease or something that shows that it's not your legal responsibility, that is going to put it in jeopardy. So please be able to articulate and to show written documentation that it is your legal responsibility. Not being under the authority of the federal government. This is federal funds. We can't pay federal entities with federal funds. So it cannot be a federal agency. Types of work. Emergency work is going to be category A and B. I'm not going to get into categories right now. We'll be doing that here in just a second. But emergency work is A and B. A is debris removal. B is emergency protective measures. Permanent work is going to be category C through G. C is roads and bridges. D is water control facilities. E is public buildings and equipment. F is public utilities. And G, other. That's going to be your publicly owned places meant for the public. That's going to be parks. That's going to be a pool. It's recreational areas, but generally just any open publicly owned land that's been improved. Emergency works, category A and B. FEMA is authorized to provide public assistance funding emergency work, including emergency protective measures and debris removal. Emergency work is that which must be done immediately to save lives, protect public health and safety, protect, improve property, eliminate or lessen an immediate threat of additional damage. So category A in debris removal is eligible when it eliminates the immediate threat to life, health, and safety. It eliminates an immediate threat of significant damage to improved property. It ensures economic recovery of the community and provides the benefit of the community at large. Dues in category A, contact MDEQ for staging area. I believe that's been taken care of. Our MDEQ contact has been working with y'all very diligently, I understand. Truck certifications, make sure your trucks are certified before they start to haul. Monitoring the debris, we need to make sure that we are being good stewards of the federal funds. We have to make sure that your contractors or your Forest County labor is actually doing that, and that's what we're going to quantify. Activate your preposition contract if you have one. Bid out debris work beyond 30 days from the storm. I know I don't want to get too deep into the procurement because I am not an attorney. I do not wish to be an attorney. But we want to make sure that everybody understands we know work's got to get done and we've got to get it done quick. There is no date. There is no federally ruled, obligated date that we can look at and say, all right, it's got to be in here. So the best rule that we can go by is that emergency contract is meant for getting work started that would be delayed greatly because you had to go to that official bidding process. So taking that in mind, in 30 days you should be able to get your information out, your publication out, and then receive those bids back and make a decision to get it going. that is a arguable number. That is something that we can articulate to say why you needed that 30-day window to get to work. So that is a 30-day is our suggestion, is to get it done less than 30 days. After you stay in that 30 days, I believe you'll be safe. I have every confidence and all the confidence in the world that you'll be safe by staying in those 30 days. Do not stage your debris wherever you want. You have got to make sure that that is going to be okay with floodplains. You got to make sure MDQ is good with it. There's several other little check marks that we got to get done, and we will help you with that. We will make sure they get permitted correctly, but just make sure that it is that it's in a permitted. So please don't use unpermitted sites. Continue with prepositioning contract beyond 30 days. That's the pretty part about a preposition, right? It's already bid. It's the best price. It's there for you, so you can activate it immediately and get those guys to work or girls to work, so they can get your community picked back up and remove all those dangers. And don't ignore debris monitoring. We need it. That's going to be your proof in the pudding. That's going to be where your money is going to come from, is the information that they can provide. Emergency work, Cat B, that's a part of the emergency work, the last one. Actions taken by applicants before, during, and after a disaster to save lives, protect public health and safety, and prevent damage to improved property. Include search and rescue, fire and flood fighting, security such as barricades, fences, or law enforcement, push of debris, not disposal. So what does that mean? I'm pushing it, I'm clearing it, I'm not taking it to that final resting spot. So a term that you'll hear in debris removal is going to be cradle to grave. So cradle being where it was born, where it hit the ground, where it's of danger. The grave is going to be that site, that landfill or that DMS site that's going to be its grave, its final resting place. So in category B, when you do that first push to clear your roads, so your emergency personnel can use it, your utilities personnel can use it, your citizens can start moving around about this area. That initial push is not grave. It's being pushed off the road and it'll be picked up later. So that's your initial push. Eligible permanent work. So category C through G is eligible permanent work. Must repair, restore, or replace disaster damaged facilities in accordance with the regulations. Must restore to pre-disaster design capacity function to accordance with the applicable laws and standards. Must be required as a result of this disaster. May include cost-effective hazard mitigation. Hazard mitigation we will talk about later on, but that's another portion of this program that I hold very dear. Permanent work, starting on the categories. We're going to blow through this. If you have any more information, we're going to provide that to you, but just be mindful of your time. We're going to blow through it pretty quick. Category C, roads and bridges. Examples: roads, surface bases, shoulders, ditches, bridges, decking, abutments, wing walls, approaches, drainage structures, culverts, and crossing drains. Now make sure, let me stay on topic. Public assistance cannot reimburse items that are under authority of another federal agency. Remember, we can't give federal funds to federal agencies. Know where your roads are. If it's a county or municipal road, that's your legal responsibility. That's going to be yours. If it's a state road, that's going to be theirs. If there is some kind of agreement that's going on, let us know. Let us work with it. Make sure that we have some agreement that gives you the authority to do that. If it's a federal aid road, it's going to be FHWA, and we need to go through them. If you have a question on what's the road system you are, get with your MDOT folks or get with us, and then we can make sure that that road system is not covered under federal aid. Many roads in Mississippi are federal aid roads, making it ineligible for permanent work under the Public Assistance Reimbursement Program. Road maintenance records. This is one we've been hit with recently hard. We were going to be asked for road maintenance. And what is that? You know, we talked about deferred maintenance, right? They want to make sure that whatever damage that you're claiming for this event was born of this event. Now, if your roads were damaged prior to the event, that's not going to be a part of the declared declaration. So we've got to prove that road was in good shape. It was under good maintenance. It doesn't have to be a lot. I'd be tickled to death if some of our road foremen and things could just have a binder, a spiral notebook in their pocket and just say, road crew number 1 went and worked on this patch in this road this day. It doesn't have to be a lot of information, but we just need to show FEMA that yes, this road is is being maintained. Documents condition of roads before debris operation begins. So if you've got a DMS site and you've got a area that's hit real heavy and it's going to be a lot of debris, heavy debris traffic on that road, go and get some pictures of it, get some video of it. Take a look at that road prior to that debris being moved, and that way after it, and you notice, hey, it really tore it up because of the event, because of their actions, indirect costs of that event. We document the before, document the after. Let's run it up the tree and see if we can get anybody to pay off on it, okay? It's not something that's unheard of, but it's certainly something that we want to be able to show some before and after. Again, going back to knowing who the road system is responsible by. Category D, this is your pumping, drainage, irrigation, dams. Anything under D as a water facility. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. If you're falling under it, let's talk about it. There's a lot of caveats that we need to discuss. Category E, this is going to be one of the bigger ones. This is going to be your buildings, your contents, your equipment. So 50% rule. Let's keep that in mind. If you have your engineer and say, hey, it's over 50% damaged, let us know. Let us get involved with it and let us start looking at it and seeing what our options are at that point, greater than 50%. Codes and standards. If we're building something back, we've got to follow codes and standards that are applicable to current codes and standards. Equipment. Equipment is an eligible reimbursement, and vehicles and supplies. So anything within that building, any of your vehicles, any supplies that you lost, anything that's going to be kind of a catch-all for any commodity, right, or a structure. So that's going to be your category E. And the blurb on the bottom, and we'll get into it some more, but we need to make sure we get insurance and salvage on that. Category F is going to be your utilities. It's power generation, distribution centers, water, gas, sewer treatment plants, telecommunication systems. This is where your electric co-ops are going to come into play. This is where they're going to start getting a lot of theirs if you got your own water system or your own gas system, or if you're here with a P&P doing one of these services. That's where yours are going to come into play, getting those lines restored and back as they were pre-disaster condition. Then here's G, that kind of the catch-all. The other one, the playground, swimming pools, ballparks, piers, beaches. I don't think y'all got many beaches here, but they're there. That's where that's going to come in. So category G. Category Z, this is where we pay you for your time. It's a 5% that FEMA will give you for your time, 5% of the total obligated cost. Total of all obligated projects can be paid back to you, that employee, to provide this service. The Stafford Act, Section 324, authorizes PA funding for management costs, direct costs, administrative expenses, etc. Preliminary damage assessments, meeting regarding the PA program, organizing damage site into logical groups, and correspondence. Funding is based on actual cost up to a specified amount at 100%. So we said the bare minimum was 75% federal funding. The category Z is at 100% automatically. But you must track your costs. If all I can get is a calendar and you put Bob dash 8 hours for working on that disaster that day, it's better than nothing. But I got to have something, and I'm gonna have to have some backup with that. But that gives me something to work with. So just track somehow, some way those employees that you have working this disaster. To be eligible for reimbursement, costs must be reasonable and necessary to accomplish the eligible work. A cost is reasonable if in its nature and amount it does not exceed which would be incurred by a prudent person under the circumstances prevailing at the time the applicant makes the decision to incur the cost. I have to go over that one slowly because I'll get tongue-tied on it quick. So it's got to be prudent. We've got to be good stewards of the federal funds. If we can keep that in mind and articulate anything saying that we are good stewards, we can articulate that and put that toward your project and get obligation. To be eligible for reimbursements, costs must be comply with federal, state, and local laws and regulations. So you ask about procurement. It's got to go by your law, your rules and regulations, your local rules and regulations. It's got to go by the state rules and regulations, and it's got to go by the federal rules and regulations. So throw everything at it. Make sure you're covering all of those three bases, and make sure that you're getting that information documented and doing it the right way, because we would certainly hate to get at the end of something and say, well, your contract wasn't right. We have got staff, FEMA staff here, FEMA lawyers in Pearl right now that are there to review your information, to give you advice on your information. Give it to us. We will be happy to send it to them, get their feedback, let you know what that is, so you, at the end of the day, we have a better stance than not having any problems to get it finalized and get that project out the door. So authorized and not prohibited under federal, state, territorial, tribal, or local government laws or regulations, and consistent with the applicant's internal policies, regulations, and procedures that apply uniformly to both federal awards and activities of the applicant. And in short, that's what I said at the beginning. You know, we're going to cover all three bases, and we're going to make sure everything's right. To be eligible for reimbursement, costs must include deduction of insurance proceeds and salvage value and purchase discounts. We'll go into insurance in pretty good detail here in a little bit, but we'll go to salvage value. If you take a truck that was destroyed to the junkyard and they give you X amount of money for that scrap, that's got to be identified and come back. The FEMA funding is the last resort. We have to factor in insurance, we have to factor in salvage value, we have to factor in purchase discounts, we have to whatever, donated resources, anything that could go towards that project to lessen your outflow, that's got to be addressed, and the FEMA funding is the last resort. Category A, force count labor. Force count labor, real quick, I think we're going to cover it here in a minute, but just to get there, we're going to, that's your employee. That is your hourly or salaried or that are currently there, or you can pick up and hire other ones, but that is your employee getting out and doing the work. For Category A, force count labor, debris removal, clearance, regular and straight time and overtime, including fringe benefits. Let us know what that fringe benefit is so we can include that into our calculations, are eligible. They are eligible costs. That's straight time and overtime. For Category B, emergency protective measures, only overtime is eligible. Only that overtime is available for Category B. Category C through G, regular and straight time, regular straight time and overtime, including the fringe benefits, are eligible. So one of the things I try to give everybody to give a broad picture of the PA program is, if you did not budget for that cost at your last budget meeting, if you did not budget for an expense, let's talk about it. Let's see what it is. You, on Category B, emergency protective measures, you budgeted for your fireman, your police officer, that 40 hours. You did not budget for the overtime. So that's where we're going to fill that void, right? So anything that exceeds your budget, let's talk about it, see if it fits in anywhere. Any extraordinary expenses that you've had to put out. Let's look at it and see if it fits anywhere. Materials are eligible costs. We talked about the roofing system. Well, you keep using on that example. If you have to buy shingles, you have to buy some tin metal for your roof, then that's your material cost if you're doing it force count labor. That is a recoverable expense. Applicant on equipment, the costs associated with equipment used to perform authorized repairs or all operating equipment hours are eligible, should be supported by labor timesheets, rates based on FEMA schedule or equipment rates. So labor timesheets. So your tractor is an eligible expense. We can get you some funding back for the use of that piece of equipment. And with that example, if you keep up with the hours that piece of equipment is in operation, we can go back and we can go to the FEMA schedule of equipment rates. If you don't have it, or if you do want it, let us know. We can email it to you. We can go back and there is an hourly rate for that piece of equipment, and then we can take the time that we can take the equipment hours, we can take the equipment rate, and then we can come up with a value of what that equipment has in this disaster, and we can reimburse that. One caveat to that: supported by labor timesheets. If it's a tractor, it doesn't operate by itself. Well, not yet, but if it's a tractor, it's operating with an operator. Have somebody there. Have somebody's name linked to that, and please make sure they're working that day. So make sure you have somebody operating that piece of equipment. Now, it's a generator, you fill it full of gas and it gens along for 8 hours, right? You're good. But for that piece of equipment that needs an operator, we have to link it back to something. Thank you, bro. Types of projects. We're going to go into small, large, improved, and alternate projects. So thresholds. Thresholds is what's going to identify the difference between a small and a large project. We'll spend just a little bit of time on this one because there is a little bit of a change to it here recently. Public assistance projects are processed as either a small or a large project. If the project cost is less than a small project threshold, the project is processed as a small project. If the project cost equals or exceeds the small threshold, it is processed as a large project. We'll get into the details a little bit more of what that means, but that's going to be the dividing line. We'll go ahead and just say now that that number is $1 million now. It used to be roughly $1,000 to identify between a small and a large project. It's gone up to $1 million. So anything $999,099 and less is going to be a small project. So that's good and bad. One, I have more freedom to get some money out quicker. It opens my checkbook a little easier, that I can get funding out there quicker. But on the bad side, we are really going to need to get good estimates. I'm sure everyone in here has done a block grant or something along those lines. That's what it is. We're going to have to get good information. We're going to have to get good numbers. Everybody needs to sit down and agree to it. And then once it gets obligated, then we can move along with getting some funded out quicker. But unless you want, and we can have long discussions about it, unless you want to go through what's called a small project netting, there's not really any wiggle room after obligation. There's just a few caveats that make that adjust any. And what happens in a small project netting is they're going to look at every small project you got. And you're going to have to go through what's essentially a 100% audit on all your small projects. So we have to make sure if it's a $500,000 small project and it costs you $600,000, if you've got another $500,000 project, we got to make sure it didn't cost you $300,000, because you're going to lose that money just to get 50% back, right? So we need to sit down and talk about it. Again, there's a lot of if, and, buts, gray areas in the PA program. So we need to have a conversation about it to see what works best for you and your situation. My suggestion is go at this eyes wide open. Make sure you're identifying 100% of your damage. Make sure you're getting the best quote that you can get for that time. And I highly suggest, as soon as you get that quote, and as soon as you feel comfortable with the money and the payment of that quote and getting it obligated, get the work done. Because I guarantee you, if you got an estimate right now, 6 months it will be no good and it'll be more expensive. So getting that work done as quickly as humanly possible based on that quote is going to be the best option for you to make sure you get as much out of this federal funding as humanly possible. Yes, sir.
Can change orders be handled in that?
No, sir. It's very rare. We're going to have a few, and we'll get into the details on any specifics, but generally, no. It's going to be just a few caveats that's going to change that, and it's going to be slim. It's a double-edged sword. I can get you money quicker, but you're going to have to make sure we're good. Okay? So funding is based on work completed if available, and this is under the small project column. Our initial cost estimate. Federal cost share is paid as soon as practical based on the complexity of the project. Again, as soon as practical, as quick as I can get you that. I've got a lot of less rules on that small project. I can get money out. And when the cost of the work is less than $3,800, that work is not eligible. It has to exceed $3,800 for them to even write the project. A large project initially approved based on estimated costs. Funding is based on documented actual costs, and federal cost share is paid as work is accomplished. Again, there's a lot of caveats to a large project, and we have to make sure our I's are dotted and T's are crossed on large projects to make payments. It's a little bit more to it. So we're going to talk real quick about improved projects. If you have anything that you think might fall into this category, let's sidebar it. Let's get together with one of your representatives, with MEMA or FEMA, and let's run that down to see if it's a good idea and if that's the best route for you to take. So applicants performing restoration work on a damaged facility may use the opportunity to make improvements to the facility while restoring the facility to its pre-disaster function. The improvement must be approved by the state prior to construction. You've got to let us know. Prior to one thing happening at that job site, you've got to let us know that it's there, that the intent is there. May require a FEMA environmental historical assessment. I would say bank on it, just to be on the safe side. And the applicant is responsible for the cost of the improvements. Federal funding is limited to the cost of the restoration. We'll get into a lot more detail on that, but just for time's sakes, we're going to continue to move on, but happy to speak in depth if you think you're going to make any improvements to any property. This is a like in kind deal. You have to bring it back like in kind. If you're going to change it in any way, shape, form, or fashion, talk to us and let us see what's out there and what shoe fits best for you in this situation. An alternate project. When restoration of a damaged facility or function does not serve the public welfare, an applicant may use a public assistance grant for another public facility. The alternate project must be approved by FEMA prior to construction. Again, let us know, let FEMA know, let us walk with you through this to make sure that we're not getting too far out left or right. A request for alternate project must be made within 12 months of the recovery scoping meeting. Recovery scoping meeting hasn't happened yet. It'll fall into an org chart that you'll see here in a few minutes, and you'll know when that time will start. That's going to be a little different from each and every one of you, but generally we want to get that identified. We must get that identified, that your desire is to do that within 12 months. The alternate project may require an environmental assessment. Again, I would just say that that's going to have to happen. Federal funding is limited to 90% of the federal share of the original project estimate or actual alternate project costs, whichever is less. The state and local governments are 75% for P&P applicants utilizing the traditional alternate project program. We could have a class all day today and most of the day tomorrow on alternate improved projects. I don't want to get too off in the weeds in it. Just get with us. If you think you're going to change that design function on that facility, get with us, let us know, and we'll see what's the best path to take. So period of performances, we have time limits on pretty much everything. So the period of performance for emergency work is going to be 6 months. 6 months to get that done. Permanent work must be completed within 18 months to get that done. There is some outs to that. We can work around it, and I think that's the next slide, Brian. Yeah. So the recipient can grant time extensions for extenuating circumstances. I'm the recipient. I can grant you a time extension for 6 months after emergency work and 30 months after the permanent work extension time limit. After that, it has to go to, I have to send it to Atlanta. You'll request it through me. I'll forward it to Atlanta, and Atlanta will approve it or disapprove it. But it will behoove everybody in this room to try to get done this work as quick as humanly possible. This doesn't get better with age. This is not anything that grows old and gets better looking like myself. As the older I get, the whole this guy needs to get done and move forward, because the quicker we can get it done, the wheels are still spinning. As things start to slow down and we get inundated with other disasters, FEMA gets inundated with other disasters, things start to slow down. So the quicker we can get this done and quicker we can get it back through the system, the better off we are. Again, the regional administrator may increase these time limit extensions case by case. After this time limit, I've got to send it to them, and they've got to approve it, and I've got no control over that. When you do a time extension, you're going to need to provide some sort of reasoning why it is taking additional time to get that project moving. If the deadline for any project has been reached without an approved time extension, no cost past that deadline will be eligible for funding. If you don't get approved for that time extension, no cost past that deadline will be an eligible expense. So again, it behooves everybody. Let's get the work done quick and move on with our lives. Special considerations are issues other than program eligibility that could affect the scope of work funding of a project. This includes insurance, hazard mitigation, environmental protection, floodplain, and historic preservation and cultural resources. We'll go into depths on most of those, but those have got to be covered. They've got to be, we've got to get blessings on those. And all these blessings are going to come from FEMA. So we got to get their weigh in on it and make sure they're okay with their specialty groups, their insurance groups, their floodplain groups, their EHP groups. We have to get their blessing on this stuff and make sure they're good, and we're not doing anything because this is federal funds and it comes with strings. We've got to make sure we're not doing any damage to the earth, and we got to making sure we're not doing anything else so that could be against their policies and regulations, because they will yank it back. And I don't want to make those calls. I hate making those calls. So let's talk about insurance. I'll read it so make sure I get everything. Actual anticipated insurance proceeds will be deducted from the eligible project cost of facilities that are insured. I'll go into more depth in just a second, but I'm going to read it off real quick. All applicants are required to obtain and maintain insurance coverage on all insurable facilities as a condition of public assistance funding. And flood damage facilities located within a special flood hazard area are not covered by flood insurance. Federal assistance will be reduced by the maximum amount of flood insurance proceeds that would have been payable had that facility been insured. So, insurance, they're going to want to see it. They're going to want to see your current policy. They're going to want to see everything you've got to do to date on your insurance. Their insurance specialist with FEMA will look at it, and they will make a determination based on your policy how much they are to pay. The amount of money that you're supposed to get from your insurance agency. So when your insurance agency comes up and it doesn't line up 100%, there's going to have to be a why. Why is it not lining up? What is the difference? Remember, FEMA is last resource on funding, right? So if they're not in the picture, would you just be okay with it? Would you say, all right, I'll settle for 75% or 50% of what you're supposed to pay me for insurance? No, they want you to go through due diligence to get all you can get or all you're legally capable to get from your insurance provider. So they're going to make sure that whatever they see in that policy that should be covered matches what your insurance provider is going to cover. And if there's not, we're going to have to explain it. It's going to be reduced off that federally obligated amount initially as an anticipated, and when your actuals come in, we'll correct it if there's any difference. So insurance is going to be a big player in this, and I want everybody also to be very aware that once FEMA pays you for something that is insurable, if they give you $100,000 for damages to a building, for example, they're going to expect and require you to keep $100,000 worth, at the minimum, $100,000 worth of insurance on that building. That's protecting our taxpayers' money, right? We've paid for $100,000 towards that building. We want you to protect that $100,000 investment that the federal government put in there. They were requiring you to have insurance on that facility or to cover that cost. As a taxpayer, I understand it. I get it. I know where they're coming from. I don't want to keep coming back and paying for something over and over and over again. So that's why the law is there and the rules are there, and we're gonna have to do it. There's no wiggle room around it. You can ask a lot of states around. That's not something that can be altered or changed. You're just going to have to make sure we're in good with their insurance and making sure we're following their policies. 406, hazard mitigation, not to be confused with 404 if you're familiar with mitigation at all. There's a 404 and a 406. 404 falls in a different category. It's a different office entirely in our facility, in our agency. 406 is something that we can provide to harden a facility to make it stronger when it was in a disaster, when it was touched by that disaster. So it has to be a part of that disaster for us to go in. So looking at our example here, you have a road with a culvert, and you see as pre-disaster, the water flows through the culvert, the road is whole, and it's travelable, it's usable. And the next picture after the disaster, you can see that the culvert blew out, whatever the case may be. The culvert is gone. The road is impassable. It's wide open. We can come back and add some additional funding to harden this to make it better, so we don't have to keep coming back and putting money into it and fixing it all the time. You can put wings on it. You can do all the things to divert water, increase the size of the culvert, anything like that, to make it more a stronger piece of facility in your jurisdiction, so we don't have to keep doing this, and it doesn't hamper any of movements. But this is just an example. You can go to your buildings can be hardened. We can look at mitigation on any kinds. If you have to reach out and to us and ask, give us your ideas. We're not engineers. I do not employ an engineer. If you have any kind of suggestions or ideas on how to provide mitigation to your any of your work, I want to know about it, because I'm a big believer in mitigation. I can go down to the coast and go through there and see things that we built back after Katrina, and because we put mitigation in it, it's still there after several hurricanes have come through again. It works. So I'm a big, huge believer in it. They're going to cover and pay for a large portion of it. So let's use it. Let's do it, and make it a stronger and more resilient. Environmental historical preservation. All FEMA funding projects must comply with a variety of EHP, local laws, regulations, and executive orders. The EHP review is done prior to funding to ensure compliance with applicable federal laws. EHP review is a collaboration between FEMA, the state, applicants, tribal entities, and local organizations. Constructions of new facilities, alternate projects, modification, expansions, or mitigation of existing facilities may require more extensive EHP review. This is where we go through FEMA and we use their experts to bless something, and we will make sure that we are covered. This is another thing that can cost us a lot of money. If we go and do something that is against any of the federal, state, or local laws on EHP, that's a hard stop. We have got to make sure we're good in the beginning, because this can really submarine any kind of cost reimbursement on the project in the back end. I say all that, and everything I've said before about being careful and making sure we get blessings, I don't want anybody to get nervous. Let's stay calm about it. We're going to work it out from the beginning all the way through. But if you'll stay in touch and make sure we're passing this information and getting blessings along down the line, trying to do the due diligence, and then if we do run across a problem at the end, then we can go back and say, well, this gentleman with your agency said it. I'm not saying that's the silver bullet that's going to make everything fine, but at least we got somebody to argue with us within the federal world. So we need to make sure that we are covering these bases. If it's a question, contact us. Let us know. If we don't have the answer, we will find you the answer. I promise. And if somebody doesn't get back with you with an answer, let me know. But we will find you the answer. We will close that loop on each and every one of these questions. Environmental protection to ensure all practical means are used to protect, restore, enhance the environment. FEMA projects must comply with all applicable laws and regulations, including the National Environmental Policy Act, the Magnuson-Stevens Act, Endangered Species Act, Clean Water Act, and the Clean Air Act, as well as 44 CFR Parts 9 and 10. Floodplain and wetlands management. Any project within an affected floodplain or wetland must be reviewed to ensure that it meets the requirements of several federal laws and executive orders. That would be EOs 11988 and 11990 and the Clean Air Act. Historic preservation and cultural resources. The National Historic Preservation Act requires FEMA's grantees and applicants to assess potential effects to historic and cultural resources such as historical buildings, structures, districts, archaeological and tribal sites, objects, and artifacts. Nothing will stop work quicker than finding artifacts, finding some sort of historical remnants. We need to make sure that we're mindful of that. Again, nothing to be concerned about, nothing to worry about. Just let us know. If there's something that pops up, just stay in contact with us. We're going to be in super close contact with you for a little while, super close. Even when we have people going back into the offices and working out of their office, we're still going to be a phone call or an email away. Nobody with MEMA PA will leave you high and dry. We're going to be there and try to work with you the best we can. So just know that these things are out there. We're going to be looking at them early, but we're going to try to catch every one of them we can. But if something slips through, be sure to let us know. Historical preservation and cultural resources. FEMA, the state, and the applicant work together to identify and address historic preservation issues before approval of funding for a public assistance project, and may require a consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office. You'll hear the name SHPO around, the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, and the Advisory Council of the Historic Preservation. Here's a good one. Record keeping, start now. I hope you started already. Please, and if you hadn't, immediately start keeping up with your records. We're going to give you an electronic, we'll have several ways that you can store this electronically, but anyway, you keep up with it and organize it. It helps out tenfold at the end. So keep up with it now. Applicants are required to maintain complete and accurate documentation by project for all disaster-related costs, and documentation must be maintained a minimum of 3 years after applicant closeout. So when you receive a letter from me saying you are completed with this disaster, you as an applicant are closed from this disaster, that starts the clock, 3 years. Somebody can come ask for it. After that, there's no legal reason for you to keep any documents. I have got a huge list that I go by that we're throwing documents out when we hit those marks. So 3 years at a minimum. Make sure you're keeping up with your documentations. Just on that caveat, on that topic, I want us to say, small and large projects, I am not going to be responsible for small project documentation. If you want to use our database, if you want to use Grants Portal, which is FEMA's database, that's fine. You have access to both, or will have access to both. You can use it to store your documents. I'm not going to require on small projects at this point to have any documentation. It slows down me being able to pay those projects. It slows down me being able to react to the large projects, and it's not something that I'm required to do. So I'm not going to force anybody to, any of our staff to go after small documents. And but I'm begging you, keep up with your own, because there'll be some 3-letter agency or state agency with a calculator. It could very well show up at some point in time and ask you about them. So be sure you're keeping up with your documents in these disasters. So your documentation is going to be a force count labor, force count equipment, materials, rented equipment, contracts. So anything that's related to this disaster and your repair costs or any of your costs for this disaster is being stored, and your documents are being categorized. So for documents and force count labor, we're looking for your payroll policy. We got to know what your policy is for your payroll. We have to know what your benefits calculation sheet is. That's that fringe benefits, and we'll pay that. It's just not $10 an hour. There's $10 an hour plus some other stuff. We want to make sure we're paying that. We're covering you for those expenses as well. So make sure we have all the your benefits calculations in there. Applicants' complete employee list should include employee rate and whether they are exempt or non-exempt. Your timesheets, payroll records, copies of canceled checks, proof of direct deposit. So we have to have proof of payment, right? So anything of that nature. So from the beginning to the end, their policy to the canceled check. Right. Equipment. Oh, I'm sorry. He's already changed it. I'm sorry. Equipment. Force account equipment. Your equipment you own. Applicant's equipment listing. Equipment documentation sheets. Employee's time sheet reflecting equipment operation time, date of use, and the FEMA schedule of equipment rates. We went over that pretty good earlier. Let's move on. Your materials summary record, applicant's material inventory list dated prior to disaster. So if you have something in stock that you're holding, you've got that already on hand. We'll need something to back up the cost that you had for that, either to buy it or to replace it. We need something to say what that cost was. Materials requisition sheets of available invoices of materials purchased and put in inventory, and copies of check to pay the invoices. Rented equipment, copies of the signed rental agreement the invoices and verify proof of payment. So beginning to end on all of it. Procurement, we've kind of gone over that a little bit, but make sure federal, state, local requirements are being met and follow the one that's the most stringent one. Make sure that one's being adhered to. We have people right now, if you want us to look at contracts, if you want us to look at MOUs, if you want us to look at anything that you would like to get a weigh in on from the FEMA legal staff, I've got them in the office right now. While they're here, let's use them. Send it to us. We'll forward it to them. They'll take a look at it and give us their opinion. It's just that is their opinion. It may be guidance going forward, doing it this way differently, what have you, but we can get somebody to look at that for you. Appeals. So if you do have costs that is determined to be ineligible, you will get a determination memo from FEMA. We call it a DEM, or you'll hear it called a DEM. When you get that DEM, if you feel like it's worth arguing, and we will talk and discuss it with you and go over your options in greater detail, but if you feel like, no, you really need, that's not correct, and you want to argue that, we can appeal it to FEMA. Now, on your first appeal, it will go to the FEMA regional office. It will get a decision from Atlanta. Second appeal goes to Washington to get that. There is another option called arbitration. We can have another day class in arbitration and appeals, but that is an option after the first generally. After the first appeal is you get a determination from the region, it opens up the door to arbitration over a certain amount. So again, we will sit down and discuss DMs with you if you feel like you want to go that route. You do have to make a decision on 60 days past that DM. When you receive it, you have 60 days to get it back to me. And then I have 120 days from the issuance of that DM to get it to FEMA. Basically, it's 60 to 60. You have it in 60 and I have it in 60, but we have a 120-day max. But you have 60. Just remember the 60. You have 60. It gets confusing. To get me a decision, we have 23 now open disasters in the state of Mississippi, and I'm getting DMs pretty regularly. It's a difficult thing to track, so I'm going to have to ask you track your DMs. Make sure that you're looking at that 60 days and get back with us. We just can't. It's hard for us to track them all. So I'm asking y'all to make sure that 60-day window is being tracked. If you do receive a DM and you let us know something in that 60 days. Again, early and often contact us and we'll work something out. We'll talk about it, discuss it, decide what the best path for you is to get this pushed forward or whether to push forward at all. So again, regional administrator and then the PA division director, which is the Washington route. Applying for public assistance grant. I told you we're going to talk about this several times. That's that deadline I mentioned earlier, April 25th. As far as I'm concerned, it's April 15th. Let's get a buffer zone built in there. Applicant must submit their request for public assistance within 30 days of the respective area being designated in the declaration. That was Saturday after the storm. That was the 25th. So be sure to get that done. We have hard copies here for you to go ahead and fill out. But you still have to do it. We'll have to do it electronically through Grants Portal, which is FEMA's database, and I think most of you are familiar with that here. So we have to do it electronically, but I wanted it to be filled out today just in case something happens, it doesn't get done, and I have to go back to fight somebody either in Atlanta or Washington about this. I can at least go in there and say, well, no, in the applicant briefing, they gave it to me in hard copy. They just forgot. We can slide that through. That's a no-brainer. But if it's 60 days after the declaration and you just forgot to, I'm going to give it a 50-50 chance it'll be approved, that they'll approve a late application. It's going to have to be really well written why you missed that date. So please get it done immediately. Applicants must submit all damage within 60 days of the recovery scoping meeting. The scoping meeting hasn't happened. It'll be a different date for each and every one of you, most likely. And it'll be 60 days from that to start to get your damage identified. just identified. The Recovery Sandy Acts include debris removal operations. Straight time force account labor is eligible. We mentioned that before. Straight and overtime for Category A. Applicant can retain earnings from the recycling of the debris. Changes also include permanent work, Section 428. Well, this is, we can have probably a 3-day class on this. So 428 allows you to group some projects, use the money from damages on facilities to make other improvements to facilities or other facilities, that facility or other facilities. And it also gives you some leeway with any overages. So to be used towards other mitigating expenses. For example, if you had enough to build a shelter, if you had enough to buy a fire truck or a generator for a building. There's options in this. I don't want to get too deep into the woods with this. We can discuss in more detail on a one-on-one basis because it really needs to, we need to make sure that it benefits you and it doesn't end up because as this says, it is a capped. It is another capped grant that's out there, and we'll need to make sure that we're not doing more damage than good. Cost overrun absorbed by the applicant. Underrun can be used by applicant for specific mitigation uses. That was that shelter or that fire truck or whatever other mitigating expenses we could find. Applicant may consolidate multiple projects in one project worksheet, and FEMA may accept applicant's license engineer cost estimates. Must be very sure of cost. Very sure of cost. And overruns and permanent work is common. So let's talk a little bit about Grants Portal. I will be the first to admit I'm the worst person to talk to about Grants Portal or any other computer program. That's why I have this gentleman up here working slideshow. I mean, not that bad. So, but it is user friendly, and we will help you. Don't sweat it. We will help you get into it. We will make sure that you understand it and where to go and how to watch for things, how to set it up to where it's most beneficial for you. We will also be doing our RPAs digitally through there. Pretty much now, every disaster, we're at the point where they're really strictly going with this software. Everything has to run through it. All of your time extension requests, all of your, if you do an appeal, everything's going to start having to go through Grants Portal. So to submit your request for public assistance, that's the April 25th one. That's through your Grants and Portal account. Simply log in, click Submit Request for Public Assistance. We'll have some information coming up, and follow the prompts. Let's show the prompts. So this is what it'll look like if you had never seen it. And right here, if you'll point to the applicant's event profile ones. The applicant event profile, down right there. You'll have to pull down that, and you'll look for 4697, and then you'll follow the prompting from there, and it should be. And if you have any questions, contact me. Like I said, I am not a computer person. I will get you somebody that will help you. I will make sure you're put in contact with a person to walk you through this and get you set up. Now, to be put onto Grants Portal, you'll need information such as your organization's name, your tax ID, DUNS number. This is an old slide. Point of contact, name, position, phone number, and email address. So not a lot of information. Again, 2 minutes, you put your RPA in. If it's any longer than that, something's wrong. It doesn't take any time at all. Once the RPA is approved, you'll be contacted by a program delivery manager from either MEMA or FEMA to initiate several meetings. And we'll go over what those meetings are real brief. But you'll be contacted by someone once that gets initiated. So phase 1 of this, FEMA assigns the PDMG. The PDMG is the program delivery manager. That's the FEMA person that you'll be working with and assigned to. You'll also be receiving a contact from MEMA. There'll be a MEMA project officer. That's what our term for people working public assistance is a project officer. So a FEMA PDMG and a MEMA project officer will be working with you to get this done. The PDMG completes an exploratory call. It's a very simple call. Don't get stressed out about it. Just go through it and it'll be fine. The applicants complete initial damage inventory. Go ahead, Brian. That's when you'll start looking and getting a comprehensive list of where your damages are, so you have something to start start your playbook with, so you can start looking down at how to go forward. Applicant captures all disaster-related damages submitted through grants portal. Initial damages inventory submitted before recovery scoping meeting. Conducts recovery scoping meeting. So going back, we saw there was several time frames that started here from your recovery scoping meeting. This is when a lot of things will start falling into place. A lot of the plans and a lot of the organization will be known, and you'll have to move forward. That's when a clock will start as well. So let's be organized. Let's keep moving. Recovery scoping meeting, damages inventory is discussed, documentation is discussed, special considerations discussed, 60 days calendar discussed, site inspection discussed. You can see why I'm moving so quickly. It's all going to be discussed again. So I want to run through this as quick as we can, because you can get absolutely bored to death with it before this is all over with. After the recovery scoping meeting, your project will begin to develop by the project team. We are going to get these projects developed and as quickly moving through the system as humanly possible. There's 2 project writers from our CRC in East, and they are en route. I'm looking for my FEMA person. I think they're en route today, that they're going to be here, and we're going to be getting those done in-house. We're going to be moving them through instead of them being shipped somewhere else and coming back and going back and forth. We want them here in the office. We want them to get it moving as quickly as humanly possible. Applicant agent. Who should be your applicant agent? Please put some thought into this. That person needs to have some qualities such as understanding the elements of the program. I'm not expecting anybody to be a PA expert. I am expecting them to be teachable. It's a lot of common sense grant once you get into it and you start looking at the essence of the acts and the program. I don't need them to be an expert in it, but I need them to be teachable. Familiar with a computer. Again, I'm not the guy, but find that person that is. Find the person that doesn't get intimidated by a computer or anything else. I wish I had a flip phone. I wish I had my flip phone back. I hate them. Well organized. I mean, there's a no-brainer. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things going on. They're going to need to be organized. They're going to need to be keeping things on the roll and on the move, and readily available. There's going to be a lot of back and forth between the MEMA project officer, the FEMA PDMG, meetings and virtual meetings, cell phone meetings, in-person meetings, site inspections. There's going to be a lot going on, and that person needs to have roller skates on so they can go anywhere they can whenever we can get on the schedule, because we want to be sure we give you as much attention as humanly possible. And with this delivery model, we're going to be utilizing our FEMA is implementing a new way to build projects. It's not really new, but it's something we haven't in Mississippi elected to do. It has gotten to the point that we're going to kind of be forced into it. But it's not really that much difficult, but it's going to be putting a little bit more responsibility on your person who's going to be doing this kind of information. We're going to be letting them put the information into the computer with our assistants. We're going to be side by side with them. It's not we're just going to give them a stack of papers and follow this spreadsheet, and they'll instructions will get you in there. We're going to be right there with them, but we're going to be having your guys putting that information into that system, and with that simplified program that we'll discuss a little bit more, that's going to help speed things along, and it'll also get that information put in there. So if you're ever going through a situation where you need documents, you know they're in there, and you know where they are and how they're labeled, and what the naming convention is and everything else. But I just can't stress this enough. Whoever that is going to be a part of this, just share with them. Don't get nervous. Don't get it's going to be frustrating. There's going to be a lot of information going back and forth. There's going to be a lot of asks. There's going to be a lot of requests for documentation, requests for information. Tell them not to get nervous. This is a group effort, and nobody's going to leave them alone. Nobody's just going to just not answer phone calls for a week. There's somebody going to be right there with them, and we've all been there several times. So we'll make sure they understand. We make sure they're getting what they need to get done, and we expect there's going to be some delays and things, and we expect it's going to take some time. We will work with you. We were happy to do so. It's what we're here, is to advise you and to work with you to make sure that you get all this done and you get every dime that you can possibly get. And with saying that, pace and priority, you will feel that they are being rushed to supply the required documentation. It does. MEMA's an applicant too, right? We put in for funds too, so I get it. I've been on the applicant side as well, so I get that. I understand where you're coming from when you feel this way. It's not as much as you being rushed, is that we all understand how your life is right now. It's hectic. You got 15 phone calls going off at one time, and you're already in a kind of a state of panic most of the days, and you're already in this rushed field. But when we start asking you for information, we get that, and we get how many places you are right now. So when we ask you on Monday for a piece of documentation and we hadn't heard from you by Wednesday or Thursday, we call you again. We're not bugging you to death. We're just making sure it stays on your radar. And if you need more time, just say, hey, hadn't got to it. I mean, just don't put it off 3-4 weeks. But we get it. There's a lot going on. Y'all are the wheels on the road, the boots on the ground. So we know that y'all got things going on. So it's going to be a lot of back and forth, and just keep walking with us. We're going to stay calm. We ask for you guys to stay calm, and we're going to get through this. We're going to get to the end, and we're going to be out of the woods. A public assistance program assists in the restoration of a community infrastructure, and it's a supplemental cost reimbursement program. Reimbursement, and like that deadline. I mean, I want everybody to understand you got to spend the money first. You got to put it out in good, or at least in good faith. You got to be putting the money out, and then we will reimburse you as quickly as we humanly possibly can. It won't be I can tell you, it won't be as quick as you want, but it'll be as quick as we can do it, and stay within the federal guidelines, and not cause ourselves to be out of compliance. So I mentioned simplified procedures. This is another FEMA thing that's come out recently, and it simplifies things a lot. And in this case, we're looking for summaries of materials, summaries of your force count labor. Give us something on record to show good estimates. Again, you'll have somebody with your program delivery manager as well as your MEMA project officer. This went into effect January 6th. This is fairly brand new. So emergency work, Cat A and B reference guides are updated and available in the PA delivery toolbox and branch manager dated 6/20/23. We will walk you through all this. We will take care of you in this and making sure you understand it. Permanent works, category C through G's. PDMGs will assist applicants with providing the required information and documents. Applicants will sign and certify the accuracy of your information provided. Again, summaries that we're going to document what your costs are, and then the federal and the state person to help you with it. And we're going to make sure you understand it, and it should simplify things. That's my hope, is it's going to very much simplify things, and proof's in the pudding, right? So you can see I'm kind of going to breeze through this pretty quick because I haven't seen it in action yet. So I know what it says, I know what the rules say, and we're going to implement it. And in theory, it's going to be a lot simpler to manage and get the information in and get obligated. So work completed. FEMA will accept certified cost estimates instead of actual detailed cost documentation. It's one of the simplified processes of this is actual estimates instead of actual cost documentation. Requires summary documentation to support force count, labor, equipment, contracts, rental, costs, and materials. Again, we're doing the summaries instead of the full-blown deal. We're just going to put the general information in there and move forward. Attach the small permanent work project certifications and acknowledgement applicants will sign. So you're certifying, where you're going to be the one certifying that, yes, what I'm giving you in this packet of information is accurate. And they're going to take the applicant certification on that. No DHP mitigation insurance may require additional information. And again, you'll hear that a lot. We're going to have to make sure they're good with everything we do. Work to be complete. Site inspection work orders will be scheduled for work to be completed, damage, and impact. So we're going to get out there and we're going to look at it with you, and we're going to look at it with our eyes and be able to testify to what you're seeing and what you're claiming, right? We're going to have some experts come in, whether they be structural engineers or what have you. We're going to have some of those experts come in that can look at it as well and articulate it back to their office to make sure that we're in good shape with that. If an applicant can provide the damage details, a physical site inspection will not be conducted. So it's possibility that if you have your engineer stamp a report, that's a possibility that FEMA will accept that and not conduct a site inspection. Requirements for damage description and dimensions remain unchanged. We're still going to have to identify what's damaged. And again, the caveat, EHP insurance and mitigation could require more information with what you've got. So with that, hour and a half, I told you.